What's up, folks? Let's talk about what is essentially going to be my build of the league. Most likely, more than likely, maybe completely possibly, is Flame Dash Ignite, specifically Divergent Flame Dash Ignite. And that's because Divergent Flame Dash has an incredibly fun and interesting alt quality, which is that for every 1% quality you get on it, you get 2% more burning damage. And of course, Ashes of the Stars is the new amulet that everyone's talking about. So let's go over how this build works and why it is so fun to play. First and foremost, when it comes to mapping, especially in places like Toxic Sewers or Waste Pool, it's just so fun to just dash through packs with no problem at all and just watch everything melt away along the pathways, across the screen, off the screen, wherever. It's really, really good with Barracks Respite to have those insane pro-lifts. We're pro-lifting Ignites, we're pro-lifting Shock, we're pro-lifting Ashes. It's just really, really, really good. And overall, the mapping feels really fast and smooth. And the other thing is that this was all the way like this from level 1. So when I got Flame Dash on in the beginning, I slapped it on Tabula and went through the axe in about 5 hours. And that's with chatting with stream and, doing whatever. So it's been one of the fastest characters I've had ever in terms of just movement and killing action at the same time. And the single target is dang good as well, about 5 million from Flame Dash and about another million from Flame Wall. So let's break down how this whole situation works. We go Divergent Flame Dash. Divergent Flame Dash, like I said, for every 1 quality, you get 2% more burning damage. You also get chance to ignite, but we don't need 106% chance to ignite. That's a bit much. So, Divergent Flame Dash combined with an Ashes of the Stars and a thick Cane of Colmac for those +3 socketed supports equals we get a 21 level Flame Dash all the way to 29, and we get the quality all the way to 98. So that's done by getting ourselves an Empower level 4 and an Enhance level 4, which then gain +3 from the staff alongside the Divergent Flame Dash also getting the bonuses from the rest of the socketed supports there, which is just insane. Right now my tooltip for Flame Dash alone is 1.1 million for the burning ground damage itself, let alone the ignite, let alone the scaling that we get from the rest of the sets. So Flame Dash is of course linked to an Empower 4 and Enhance 4. I started with an Empower 2 and an Enhance 2 and leveled up from the very beginning. The build basically builds itself as you go through. All I started with was an Empower 2, an Enhance 2, and a Tabula with +1, a Divergent Flame Dash, an Ashes of the Stars, and a Barracks Respite. That is what I started the build with. Oh yeah, and a Stampedes, but those cost like 5C. And that's it. That was the build that I started with, and everything else has been built upon those starting items, mapping, doing content, clearing stuff, whatever it be. It's really, really easy. Divergent Flame Dash, Empower, Enhance, both of those are level 7. Then we got an Efficacy. I don't know, it's just one of the better ones to put in there. There might be a better choice. This one just works for me. And the Awakened Burning Damage becomes level 8, which is really, really nice. And then we also get a Swift Affliction as well in there. Awakened level 8 as well. Not too much money on those. Those are probably an X a piece, I think. Swift Affliction might even be less or more. I can't remember the prices. It's been a while. The Cane of Colmac, I bought this one for 10C. It's literally just +3 socketed supports, fire damage, and cast speed. Cast speed is really, really nice for the build. One, because we are flame dashing constantly, so that really helps with the flame dash cast speed as well, because only the first one is instantaneous. And we get Flame Wall in there as well as Orb of Storms. So all of those are nice little things we cast, and as a result, we do want that cast speed on the staff. So you can get one of these for about 10C, and then link it yourself, or if you can find a linked one, I don't know if you can, but very, very, very nice little setup. So that's the Flame Dash setup in the staff. And like I said, it's doing about 5 million DPS after all things are said and done. So how do we scale our Flame Dash? Because the Ignite is 2 million, the Burning Ground is 3 million, but where do those numbers come from? The first and foremost is a Phantasmal Flame Wall. Because we're already scaling alt quality gems because of the Ashes of the Stars, we might as well scale 2 alt quality gems. Phantasmal Flame Wall has the effect that the extra quality on it actually gives you a bigger exposure. So the more quality you get, the lower the more exposure you do. So right now mine is doing a -33 exposure, and when you're combining that with Elementalist exposure for -25 and the Fire Mastery for an extra 5, things really just don't have any sort of fire resist against this build, which scales insanely well for the damage over time that we're doing. So we of course have Phantasmal Flame Wall. Here we have an enhanced 3 because these were my self-made enhances. I didn't buy these like 4 or anything ahead of time, so this one just went to 3, so I just kept it as 3. And also, as well, once again, that Empower 4 because our Flame Wall is doing some of our DPS. A nice 271k on the secondary debuff, so you just put that down and scaled up, that becomes about 1 million DPS in total. So we got Empower and Enhance in there. Swift Affliction, non-awakened. If I wanted to do more damage, once again, put an Awaken in there. Awaken Controlled Destruction, those cost like absolutely nothing. This thing does not need to crit, and spell damage does scale its DPS, so might as well slap in an Awaken Controlled Destruction. They're really cheap. And burning damage, once again, should be awakened burning damage, but just have no reason to pick it up. I'm doing plenty of DPS, so I haven't really wasted the money on that. Very easy 6-link just to power up the Flame Wall, get it a little bit higher level, and also scale that alt quality so we get a much bigger exposure. For the next step in damage scaling, we got ourselves an Orb of Storms with Combustion, Flammability, and Hex Touch. When you first cast Orb of Storms, upon its casting, it will shoot out 1 bolt. That 1 bolt I'm using to combust and curse on bosses, and that's just really the important part because we do have the Shaper of Flame, meaning not only do we get that 25% more damage with ignites, all our damage can ignite, and by having all our damage be able to ignite, we can make the Orb of Storms do combustion and also flammability. So that's just another reduction of resistances along with more reduction of resistances. So we're just taking resistances down as low as we can go, and it works really well. The other thing we're doing for defenses is we do have Malevolence, we have Vitality, Defiance Banner, Clarity, and Determination. Those are the auras we're running. Malevolence, of course, damage over time. You're not going to get away from that ever. Vitality, because we really just want a little bit of regen. You know, it's a nice defensive layer, and there's not too many things we can stack with the build. We got a couple of regen items as well, like the helmet itself has 126 regen, so this, with Vitality, we have about 326 regen just there, and we can scale that up a little bit more. And in total, we have about 683, and because we're always moving, because we're always flame dashing, we have 781 regen, which feels really nice for the build in general. Would highly recommend that as combo. Defiance Banner and Determination, of course, is how we're going to get ourselves some armor. So we got 9.8k while standing in town here. If we pop some Molten Shell action, we got 12. Pop the Flask, we go up to 25k armor, which is pretty good for overall just defenses and mapping, and feels really stable. And our Flask are gain charges on hit, so we have those up pretty much all the time when it comes to normal content. The reason Determination is not level 920 is because I don't have 155 strength. I am 3 off, and I couldn't be bothered to try to get it to go up. I guess I could roll this one to be 55 strength and then get it from there, but I just didn't really bother with it. So if I wanted to get it up 1 more level, that's completely doable. The last thing we have is Val Molten Shell on life tap and increased duration. I just have it on life tap because it makes it a whole lot easier for me to cast it. Just hold it on left click. I know some people don't like doing that, so just Molten Shell there, and then Val Molten Shell when I'm about to get hit by something big, press the old W key, and you're good to go. The reason I have it on life tap is because the life cost of it would be kind of annoying with Flame Dash costing 88 mana. I do only have 105, so when I'm going to kill something, I go 1-2, and then I wait, and then I dash. And that's why I have Clarity, because I do regenerate my mana rather rapidly, and I don't have to attack that often, so I don't have to spam it all the time, so it's completely possible to use it and use that 88 mana to good effect using Clarity, and that's why we have Clarity in there, just for that little bit more scaling. When we have 149 mana regen per second, then we're basically casting once a second, because Ignite lasts about 4 seconds. So with going into packs, we have Barracks Respite, then doing our prolifing, and that's where the next stage of this comes in. So we're flame dashing around, we're using Flame Wall and Orb of Storms to put down our resistance reductions. We got our defenses, we got our auras, we got a bit of Molten Shell action. From there, how do we scale the rest? We use the Polaric Devastation. Polaric Devastation, when in the left ring socket, means that anything we ignite is covered in ash for 5 seconds, which is really good because we have about a 4-second ignite for Flame Dash. So this means that everything is always covered in ash. Combined with the fact that we're using a Barracks Respite means that if we shock or ignite anything, which we always do because we are an elementalist, that will then prolif. So not only are we prolifing our shock, our ignite, we're also prolifting the ash, because every time something gets ignited, it's also going to get ash. So this combo makes mapping super fun and super fast, because the other thing we combine with this is we also have a Master of Fire, so that everything nearby us has that exposure of -10, so we don't have to spam Flame Wall. And combine that with the Mastermind of Discord, it's -35, and then we have another 5 from one of the Fire Masteries. So we get a lot of exposure, we get a lot of ash, we get a lot of shock, and just ignites go everywhere and absolutely melt everything. It's fantastic. The rest of the gear is kind of interesting when it comes to the boot choice. The Stampedes are mandatory. You really can't get away from them. The cooldown recovery that you get from the Stampedes for the 75% cooldown recovery of travel skills, and Flame Dash is a travel skill, combined with Fleetfoot, means that this allows us to basically Flame Dash on cooldown. So you never really get out of flame dashes. If you just keep pressing the button, you're always ready to go, you're always ready to dash. It's not a problem. If you don't use Stampedes, your cooldown is actually long enough that you can get from pack to pack and not have a flame dash available. So you do want to use Stampedes. They're pretty much mandatory, but they're really cheap, and they're, you know, gonna give you a Divine Judgment or whatever you want to anoint on them. This is what I anointed. I think it's the best, but I'm not entirely sure. There's probably some tweaking depending on your levels and stuff, but I just slapped that on there because it was cheap and it was easy. So Stampedes are the best in slot for that, and almost mandatory. For the rest of the gear though, it's pretty much just life and resistances, right? Here we have life, resistances, and regen. We have life, resistances, and more life. And here we have life, resistances, and some strength, because I need strength in the build. The benefit of this is when I rolled these gloves, I actually got the chaos roll. And I started thinking, what if I did use the chaos to my advantage? So we actually ended up with 86 chaos resist because of the fact that we did go Divine Flesh. Divine Flesh gave another really good defensive layer to the build. On top of our regen, on top of our armor, we also take less damage this way. So Divine Flesh was kind of the one that I forced into the build. We were a different pathing, a different setup, but Divine Flesh really helped flesh out the build, excuse the pun. So, to get that in there, we then have Chaos Resist on our gloves, we have just big ol' resist on the chest piece, and we have some Chaos Resist on our belt, just crafted on, which is life, regen, lightning resist, a bit of Chaos Resist, and then we have more Chaos Resist on here. So we're just getting life, regen, and chaos resist. Those are the main points on the gear. And then whatever resistances, you can kind of squeeze out the rest of your stuff, because you do get some resistances from things like the Barbaric Devastation. Barracks gives you some resistances as well. So you're not completely out of those. And then we use a big old Abyssal Eye for life, mana, cold resist, and fire resist to top off the rest of the resistance that we need. So that lets us get in the old Divine Flesh. And even though we override these nodes with Val nodes, things like movement speed, chaos damage, whatever, we can still pick up something like this, the Temple Pass, which used to be the old Determination node here, and then get the Armor Mastery from that. So that's why I still picked that up, and that you just kind of want something good in that, and 9-all resist was good enough for me. I didn't really worry about it. I did get 33 fire damage from here. The penetration really doesn't do much for me, so I ended up grabbing these two, and then getting that Determination Reservation from there, along with then grabbing the rest of the stuff on the side, because might as well path through there. Good life, good fire damage, really good nodes over there. Other than that, the big thing we gotta do is scale our shock. So because we always shock, we do want that shock effect to be better. So with 15% shock at least, if you could then pick up 40% increased non-damaging elements, another 30% increased non-damaging elements, you start scaling that 15%, and we actually have a 33% chance, or 33 shock level as a result of having those extra nodes in there, and that allows us to have a really big shock and to scale our damage even higher, even on bosses, and it's really nice. We do use a careful planning in the tree. I have a Corrupting Blood one, just because I kill stuff so fast, I get Corrupting Blood stacks on me way too quickly. We do use a careful planning to change all these nodes into decks, and that is just because I needed a bunch of decks for the rest of my gear in terms of Swift Afflictions and stuff like that, so I just changed this over. If you were to go in Divine Flesh, you could get decks on the tree and then maybe put something else in here to kind of cover up for that, but I just slapped that in there. It was really easy to fix my issues, and then the rest of it is just burning damage over time, and a little bit more max life, and that's about all the sockets that we get, because we go for a Cluster Jewel. Cluster Jewel is just burning bright, widespread destruction, smoky remains. Really any fire large will work. I just went for this one, so we have the smoke clouds. It's a little bit better. I should have 2 of them just because, I don't know, I was being cheap and just bought cheap stuff. And this one's just cooked alive, so we get another extra -5 resistances from there. Bit of a circling oblivion. I actually didn't go for a whole lot of damage over time on any of these because they were just cheaper this way and I was doing plenty of damage as it was. And then nearby exposure, like I said, for that mapping goodness. The rest of them is 2 Born of Chaoses. This lets me go Divine Flesh. If you don't want to go Divine Flesh, then by all means slap in some Fetals up here and you'll be really, really thick. You know, I got 5,000 HP now. Put in 2 Fetals and drop so the Chaos Resist from your gear, and you're going to be able to push up to 6.5k HP. No problem at all, probably. I would assume, most likely. Don't quote me on that. I would assume so, though. And other than that, you know, just pick up your masteries for things like Clarity, the regen when moving. You get some more Fire Multi from there. You get some recovery. This is actually the really big one here. The recover 2% life when you ignite a non-ignited enemy. Because we do have so much prolif, we basically always top ourselves off. Every time you jump into a back, you will instantly top off because everything's going to prolif, everything's going to ignite, and you're going to get 2% of your life really rapidly. So it's really safe as long as you don't, you know, run out of flame dashes right into the middle of a pack and then somehow miss the pack and don't ignite the pack and the pack doesn't die. It can happen. It is a weird problem with this build where you're going to have a little bit of a playstyle relearning because your movement skill is your damage skill. You don't want to flame dash into the way of damage. So you don't want to flame dash into Shaper's Beam. You don't want to flame dash into the Cortex Slam. You don't want to flame dash into the pathway of Chayula and then get blendered by his, you know, Cyclone. You kind of have to learn to do these little figure 8s when you're fighting stuff to run around in circles and not put yourself in a bad spot. It does take a little bit of learning to do, but once you get the rhythm down, once you get the flow down, it's not too difficult. And when it comes to general stuff, you know, we do have the Flask all having those 5 charges or 6 charges or 7 charges gain on hit. So it does make it really easy for them to just stay up consistently uptime all the time, since we don't really have any kind of evasion. We do take hits constantly a little bit here and there, but that's why we got the regen, that's why we got the armor, that's why we got the Divine Flesh to kind of top off those things. You can die in the beginning with this build quite a lot because it takes a little bit of like mental training to get used to it. But once you're used to the playstyle of just using Flame Dash as your main ability, your main damage, you're gonna have a pretty good time. And the damage is just nuts. It just feels so good to be able to just dash through stuff. I was doing a bunch of invites. I'll put a couple clips up at the end of the video for the new Pinnacle bosses and basically all the content in general. And yeah, I can basically roll anything on them and be just fine, besides maybe like no regen and avoid ailments. Those are both kind of annoying, so you don't want to do those. But anything other than that, like Moral Life, Enfeebled, Temp Chains, whatever have you, it doesn't really matter. You're going to be able to kill it. You're not going to have any problem with it. At least I haven't had it with this build. It's really strong in terms of just the playstyle of you're no longer where you were. You've done damage for 4 seconds by just walking past something, and all the attacks are behind you. So defensively, you kind of get into this weird rhythm of just doing drive-bys on enemies, especially in like the feared fight or the twisted fight or whatever have you. You just kind of do a drive-by and just keep going, you know? You don't have to be near the enemy. Most big mobs are pretty stable when they stand still. And if they're not, just, you know, do little circles around them and make them stand around and try to hit you. It's really, really good feeling. So I highly recommend checking out some of the weirder things you can do with the new Ashes of the Stars, like Divergent Flame Dash. And I will say this is probably going to be my build of the league because it just hits so many buttons and it did everything so right. So I can't recommend it enough. It's really fun. It's really different. It's really interesting to play. The only downside of this is Divergent Flame Dash is not something a lot of people in high seem to be picking up. So you might get kind of unlucky. And it took me 20 corruptions to get a 2120. So it can take a while. It can take a while if you're going to go the whole hog and try to get a 2120. But it's worth it. It's worth it. I can recommend this build. It's a lot of fun. I don't think you can do Simulacrum Wave 28 plus or something like that with this build. You know, it's not going to do the maximum pinnacle content. You're not going to be running around 5-way legions, killing everything. But if you're just looking to map, if you're looking to just enjoy some basic, you know, Path of Exile goodness, then I do highly recommend checking this one out. It is well worth it. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching this. Hopefully it answered all your questions. If not, do leave them in the comments down below, or ask me on Twitch. You know, I stream daily from 8 p.m. every single time Eastern Standard Time. And like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff as always. I should have some clips after this for the bosses, I hope, if I put them in. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching. See ya around dashing. Peace. And see the poles? Oh, yeah. That's what you're supposed to do, is supposed to run behind the poles, or you just kill them too quick. And you don't care. Yeah, for the fire one, I just run around them. Once you have enough damage, you only have to do like one astral phase at worst. He's hasted. Yeah, he's totally hasted. He's fast as fuck. Oh god. Dude, I made a speedy as fuck one. Holy shit. Oh, I'll energize a sphere, alright. These pair of spheres in my pants. Ow. What's this way? Oh god. Dude, Turbo is no joke. Another star? Dude, how many of these am I gonna get? I get one like every run.
When I'm ready and the appointed time is here. Victory will be ours.
Disintegration, annihilation, cleansing, incineration. The fires of 1,000 suns.
Whee!
I shall extinguish them all.
You do not have the strength, hatchling.
Yeah, stampedes make me not care about that.
But I am not alone.
How pathetic. Annihilation. Incineration.
Ah!
Disintegration. Cleansing.
Oh, you're on the wall?
Annihilation.
Thank you.